Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and yesterday was pretty straightforward. So LNG beat Rogue Warriors 2-0. The more time I spent thinking about that game, the more that I liked LNG's chances of getting the upset from like a game theory perspective. So Rogue Warriors has looked much better recently, and I figured a lot of people on DraftKings would be on them. I played an entry in the Shock Blast last night, and I had Light as my 80 carry. Flandre ended up having a really good series. He had like 86 points or 88 points, something like that. So I knew that top lane was pretty even, and those are the kinds of matchups that we look for. So even though I didn't pick them officially, like in Discord, I think I gave some information for people to consider using LNG at the very least, which was hopefully a good thing for you. Next up, you had EDG beat Billy Gaming 2-0. Invictus Gaming beat OMG 2-0. Genji destroyed Sol Hwan Prince. Like I said, that's like the best DraftKings matchup of the night. I don't know if they were the highest scoring overall, but Clid scored 100 points, BDD scored 100 points, and Ruler scored like 130, no, 110 or 120. He had like 177 as captain. Pretty insane. So the matches tomorrow aren't that great, so I'm just going to go through them pretty fast, and then I was going to discuss basketball for a little bit, and then I was going to get out of here. So let's get the... Alright, so the first match in China tomorrow is V5 against JDG. So we don't have the lineups yet. It's actually pretty early when I'm recording this. V5 now has question marks at the 80 carry position. I'm not sure what they're going to do with the 80 carry, but it doesn't really matter. V5 looks like they're panicking a little bit. The fact that they would take out Samd after the split that he's had is a very bad thing, in my opinion, from an organizational perspective. Samd coming in his first split has a very good split, and then things go a little sideways when you're playing against good competition, which you should expect is good competition, and they start messing around with the roster. And roster continuity is pretty important, in my opinion, for League of Legends in general. I understand that Y4 ended up helping them win that series, but we've seen enough from Samd to know that he can beat top level teams. So why would you take away some of that player's confidence? Unless they specifically asked to be put on the bench, you should let them continue. So V5 against JDG in the top lane, you have to prefer Zoom over Bew. In the jungle, you have to prefer Kanavi over Weiwei. In the mid lane, Yagao against Mole is pretty close. And then the bot lanes, Loken and Lumao against an 80 carry and PP God. I just don't... It's tough because I do like V5. I think that they have surpassed all expectations for the season, but I don't expect them to beat the top teams. So I think it's pretty clear I'm skeptical about their chances of beating JDG. They're definitely a live dog, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Team World Elite against E-Star. That should be an easy one for Team World Elite. They really need these matches to secure a good playoff spot. E-Star has been messing around with their roster a little bit. Doesn't matter. I still think World Elite much better. And then Top Esports against RNG. RNG needs to continue winning to get into the playoffs. I don't think that this is a good spot for them at all. Just the way that the teams line up in the top lane, 369 against New. 369 is a much better player than New. Karsa against Xiaolong Bao. Xiaolong Bao has been playing well recently. No problems with Xiaolong Bao as a player. Just they aren't Karsa, which is a good thing and a bad thing. So Karsa is really inseparable from Lee Sin. And when you take that core of the champion pool and match it up against Xiaolong Bao, who could be playing the Nidalee or the Graves, there are opportunities for RNG to win the game that way, but Karsa is such a good playmaker that I don't think it really matters. And then in Korea, we have Damwon Gaming against Hanwha Life. Not going to spend any time talking about that. And T1 against Sandbox. So T1 at minus 550 over Sandbox. Don't know if Faker or Closer are playing, but it shouldn't matter. The Fighting Yamato Cannons should lose that game. So let's take a look at some of the NBA stuff. Like I don't play a lot of money on the NBA, but I like going through the games, thinking about the matchups. So let's do that. I had a pretty good lineup last night. I had James Harden, I had Luka Doncic, I had Lonnie Walker, I had Daniel House. I guess I could talk about that real quick. Let me get that roster. Scored 309 points, which is okay. Not good enough for a gigantic contest, but I had a free ticket, so was going to play it no matter what. Alright, so let's go through my decision-making process. So, DeJounte Murray, I thought that the game would be higher scoring. It was 129 to 120. Sacramento is a good matchup in a lot of spots, and the way that their roster breaks down is like they have a lot of young players in the 1 through 3 spots. So I figured DeJounte Murray had a good upside. He was only like 6,100, I think. So this was like a pivot off of Shabazz Napier, and it was also someone that had high upside, especially if the game blew out. So DeJounte Murray throughout the season has been put on a limits restriction, but even in 25 minutes, he scores 40 points pretty often. And then if you get to 30, 35 minutes, then you have a good chance of like really breaking into that ceiling. So DeJounte Murray is definitely somebody who can score 50 DraftKings points, and I wanted the upside of that. Next up, we had Lonnie Walker. So Popovich keeps talking about wanting to develop players. I needed some salary savings. I was thinking once again about how the two teams would match up lineup-wise. So you have like De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, Bojan Bogdanovic, just those kinds of players from Sacramento mean that both teams could theoretically go small in different spots. There were some players missing from the Spurs that opened up some minutes, like LaMarcus Aldridge. So when somebody like LaMarcus Aldridge isn't playing, they can either try to replace LaMarcus Aldridge with a similar player, or they can just go a little bit smaller. Lonnie Walker is somebody who can play 1 through 3. Rudy Gay is going to be a 3 or a 4, probably a 4 more often than not now. And then like DeMar DeRozan can do 3 or a 4. And there's nobody on Sacramento that you're really that afraid of. So it was a good spot for Lonnie Walker. And I thought if the game blew out, then he would also get some additional minutes. Lonnie Walker's been playing a ton though, just in general. Next up, small forward Isaac Bonga. Again, this one was probably too cute. I was trying to get off of like Ish Smith. I was trying to get exposure to the Washington game without playing Shabazz Napier or Ish Smith. I should have just went with the Ish Smith instead of like DeJounte Murray, and then had a little bit extra salary and went for Isaac Bonga. The reason this happened though is because when I was building my lineups, I was doing everything I could to try to fit in James Harden, Luka Doncic, and Giannis, because I just thought all three of them were in very good spots, and they all played really well yesterday. They all scored a ton of points. So yeah, Isaac Bonga. The other thing with him is he has like the ability to handle the ball, and against Phoenix, again, there's no one that you're that afraid of on Phoenix defense-wise. Like, Bonga presents potential matchup problems for Phoenix, being an oversized ball carrier. But it's whatever. Ball handler, not carrier. Next up, Daniel House. So again, Eric Gordon was out, so there were some different roster issues with the Rockets, and I thought that this game was going to blow out. I didn't think it was going to be 153 to 149 necessarily. That's not what I was projecting it. Like, I didn't have projections for this, but I'm just saying I liked that being the highest scoring game of the day. So I wanted to do a mini game stack, so I have 2 players from Houston, 2 players from Dallas. So Daniel House was either 4,000, 3,800. Okay, so yeah, Daniel House was 3,800. And again, because of how I was trying to build my lineup, he fit in there perfectly. Jarrett Allen, I started off instantly wanting to play Jarrett Allen against Nikola Vucevic, but like right before lock, they announced that Lance Thomas was going to start at power forward, and I was trying to get those 3 very good players that I was mentioning earlier, plus somebody like Lance Thomas in the center spot, just to like get all of those savings. And I mean, Lance Thomas, if he actually gets the minutes, Lance Thomas is a good enough player. He can distribute the ball as like a point forward. I assume that the coach was kind of going for like a calming veteran presence in the lineup. But Lance Thomas, he's not an athlete anymore. Like, he's not an elite athlete anymore, but he is still a very intelligent basketball player, and does everything the right way. So he is a good player for someone like the Nets in quarantine, where you need players that can play multiple positions offensively and defensively. Like, he's not gonna dominate anybody with his athleticism, but intellectually he's a pretty smart player in my opinion. I know that this is kind of covering up some of the numbers. All right, shouldn't matter. So yeah, next up, Tim Hardaway Jr. So Tim Hardaway, he was a Knick for a little while. I like Tim Hardaway. He has the big point upside, and in a game that's going to blow out, the way that I was thinking the game would go, the game script, I wanted to have Tim Hardaway Jr. I didn't think that Porzingis would necessarily have a great game, and he ended up scoring like 70-something DraftKings points as a center. So you could have went like with the more straightforward game stack. Actually, I'm not sure who won first place in this. Oh, Emil Heskey, I remember that guy. Sevens Fox. Good for that guy. Hey, Billy. Nice, Billy. Billy's good at the basketball. So Billy had James Harden, C.J. McCollum, Covington, Brandon Clark, Thomas Bryant, Lonnie Walker, Jaren Jackson, and Porzingis. So yeah, Porzingis had 70 points. Damn, he was close to another milli. I gotta talk to him about that. That's pretty funny. Yeah, maybe I'll try to do that. I'll try to get a video with him talking about basketball soon. So McCollum had a very good night. Porzingis 8,600. Not sure if I could have fit him into any of my lineups. Show only mine. So yeah, Doncic. Giannis was a better player than Doncic last night, results oriented, and so was Porzingis. But that's basically it for last night. So let's just go through these games, and I'm gonna take some time because like I want to build out my lineup. I'm just gonna play a single entry in this single entry tournament, but I can use it to go through all these matchups. So first up, let's go through Denver against Miami. Denver and Miami, 104 to 111. What's the over under? I like Fantasy Labs a lot with their lineup page. It's like very simple, but it's like visually pleasing. I guess that's the way to say it. Wait, this isn't what I was looking for. Yeah, Labs Terminal. This is good stuff. All right. So the Heat against the Nuggets, 106 to 105. So this is the kind of matchup where there are a lot. It's an interesting thing to think through because the Denver Nuggets have been playing a lot of oversized lineups because when you have somebody like Nikola Jokic on your team, and he can basically handle the ball all game. Like the more Nikola is holding onto the ball, the more he's able to dictate the flow of the game, and the more he can slow it down, the more minutes he can play. So we have to think about Jokic really first and foremost. Jokic is one of the players when I won like thousands of dollars on the NBA. He was in my roster. He was one of my main guys that night because I just love his play style. So Denver against Miami. So Jamal Murray, it's not clear if he's playing or not, but he's most likely playing. Kendrick Nunn, Goran Dragic, Monte Morris. Those are really the only players you need to consider, I think, from the point guard position in this game. It does make me like the fact that Denver wants to go oversized makes me like Kendrick Nunn more because Kendrick Nunn is an oversized point guard. That means he might get a lot more minutes today based off of that fact. So Kendrick Nunn, being an oversized point guard, still can defend against some of the oversized Denver lineups, which means he's not going to get forced off the court. It doesn't mean that he's going to be able to maneuver himself within the offense and score DraftKings points. We don't know that for sure, but it just gives him more opportunities for DraftKings points, and that's really what we're looking for. So I do like Kendrick Nunn at 5,200. He has the 40 to 50 point upside that you're looking for. Goran Dragic is more of a traditional point guard, a lot smaller. I don't like a lot of the matchups that Dragic is going to have because he seems like he's the kind of guy who can get smothered, and like just imagining him against someone like Jeremy Grant on a switch, that doesn't inspire me. It doesn't give me any confidence. Jamal Murray, good player, pretty dependent on scoring. So not the kind of player that I like to use on DraftKings. His upside is pretty high, but he seems priced correctly. This isn't the most attractive fantasy game overall, but you have to kind of look for some of these value spots. So if Jamal Murray doesn't play, then Monte Morris is going to get a ton of extra minutes, and he can get to the 35 point mark. So he'd be close to 10x. So that's somebody you got to look at. At shooting guard, we have Jimmy Butler, all around very good player. I love Jimmy Butler. In this kind of match, it might actually be a good matchup for Jimmy Butler because he'll have to take on some of the additional scoring, even more scoring, if these lineups go oversized, because Jimmy Butler's not going to leave the floor either way. Duncan Robinson, very good three-point shooter. Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Herro. Not sure how much Herro is playing in the restart. But he's a very good shooter as well. Well, he's more of a volume shooter, actually. Denver, Will Barton's out. Gary Harris is out. Troy Daniels, Torrey Craig. This is one of the reasons why they keep going oversized. So Monte Morris should be getting minutes regardless. Jamal Murray, if those other players are out. Like Will Barton controls the ball a lot. Gary Harris is more of a traditional shooting guard. And then small forward, Michael Porter Jr. He's going to be a very, very popular play today. Even in those oversized lineups, he can handle the ball a little bit. He can shoot threes. He's going to be very popular, so I'm going to put him in my lineup just as a placeholder. Jay Crowder, Paul Millsap, Derrick Jones Jr. Wow, Derrick Jones Jr. is actually getting a lot of play. He has to shake that idea that he's only a dunker. So this is where we start seeing a lot of the flexible 3s, 4s, and 5s. So Paul Millsap, he can play the 4 or the 5. Jay Crowder could probably play 2 through 5 on defense. Jay Crowder is a very good defender. He's like the perfect player to be next to Jimmy Butler in terms of like attitude and like mentality. It just seems like such a good combination of players. Jeremy Grant seems underpriced. Not sure how many minutes he's actually playing, but he's a pretty frustrating player to watch overall. He's not going to be the primary or secondary option. Bol has been getting a lot of extra minutes. I'm surprised he's at 3,000. So that's another player you're going to have to take into consideration when you're building your lineups. Because if Bol or Michael Porter Jr. have a good game, they'll probably be in one of the optimal lineups. Funny story about Bol. I actually played basketball. I was playing basketball, a pickup game of basketball in my town, and there was like some 6'10", kid just playing at the courts in our town, because like he was living in Hackensack. I don't think it was Bol. I think it was one of Bol's like cousins or older cousins or something like that. So we're playing basketball. It's the middle of the summer, and we decide to go back to my house to go swimming, and we had a 6'10" kid who would eventually play college basketball at like a D1 program, swimming around in our pool. It was pretty funny. Like the water in the pool barely covered his legs. It was just insane. So that was pretty funny. Denver against Miami in the center spot. So Nikola Jokic, Bam Adebayo, Mason Plumlee, Kelly Olynyk, Noah Vonleh. These are all players that make a lot of sense against each other. Myers Leonard. So if either team decides to go and play the oversized lineup, it's most likely going to be Denver. So Denver has the option to go oversized, and Miami has a lot of the tools to match them. So that's not necessarily a good thing for DraftKings scoring unless it helps push the minutes for some of the bigger players like through the roof. So Kelly Olynyk is perfect for this kind of game. Bam Adebayo is perfect for this kind of game. They're both pretty athletic big men. Well, Kelly Olynyk's more of like a fluid mover. He's not really like a jump out of the gym kind of player. Not sure how much Kelly Olynyk's going to play, but this seems like the perfect kind of spot for him. He's only 3,000. Pretty interesting. I guess I don't really love any of those players. Jokic is always interesting. He's a triple-double machine. Any day he can kind of just get a triple-double. Didn't have a good game against Miami last time. That's probably a good thing though for DraftKings. Like you'll have less people to compete with on ownership. All right, next up, Utah and OKC. So we have 107.5 to 109.5. Is Chris Paul out? All right, he's going to play. It sounds like. So Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Dennis Schroeder against Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson had a really good first game. It's not only that he played well, he had a ton of usage. There were different times where he was like the primary scoring option for the Jazz in their opening game against the Pelicans. Just a very good game overall. Scored 37 points, took 17 shots, went 1 of 8 from 3. Like, these are the kinds of things where it's like, oh yeah, he scored 37 points, oh, but he took so many shots, like, he's not going to do that again. Well, actually, he took 8 threes and only made 1 of them, so he had additional upside in that game that he missed out on, and he's only priced 3,900. So I think almost everybody, in something like a single entry, everybody's going to go back to Jordan Clarkson. So you either have to play Jordan Clarkson most likely, or you have to get some kind of pivot off of him. Matchup wise, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a good oversized point guard, well, combo guard, but a good lengthy defender, very athletic. I don't know if he's a negative defensive matchup, but in my mind it seems like he could be. Chris Paul's a good defender, not really afraid of the players from Utah getting locked down, really. It could make the game go faster. Dennis Schroeder is a very easy matchup, so I guess a lot of this depends on how much Dennis Schroeder, how much he actually plays. So let's see. Jordan Clarkson was not there the first time they played against each other. This should be a good matchup for Donovan Mitchell. So at 7,000, not really the best. you would basically need him to be like one of the highest scoring players on the slate to justify the 7K price tag, because it's going to price you out of a lot of other options when there's so much value on the board from somebody like Michael Porter Jr. or Bol Bol or Jordan Clarkson, something like that. How many shots did he take in that first game? 6 for 14. Still scored 42 points. That's okay. That's like a 6x. Not really what you're looking for. So if I was going to play a guard from Utah, I would basically have to convince myself that somebody is going to get a good matchup against Dennis Schroeder in the secondary. That's telling me to play Jordan Clarkson again, because basically if we get into a spot where the second team for both lineups are on the floor, Dennis Schroeder is running the offense for Oklahoma City, Jordan Clarkson's running the offense for Utah, then we're getting Jordan Clarkson against Dennis Schroeder. Jordan Clarkson should kill Dennis Schroeder. Maybe Donovan Mitchell takes over some of the second unit. So Donovan Mitchell, obviously a good play regardless of, like, you can play these guys against anybody and they might get a plus matchup against Dennis Schroeder. So that's something to watch out for. Definitely something to take into consideration. Joe Ingles isn't the kind of player that I like using on DraftKings, because so much of his, I feel like, I don't know this for sure, but I would assume that Joe Ingles doesn't really correlate well with the rest of his team. Like, when he hits his ceiling games, I think that the other players on his team are less likely to get their ceiling, or like create tournament value, because he's mostly scoring, right? Like spot up threes and stuff like that. Yeah, so for OKC, we still only have those 3 guards that are really getting into this rotation. Diallo, not sure if he's been playing. Sounds like he was only playing because Chris Paul was not playing. Danilo Gallinari, my favorite player of all time. Love Danilo. Danilo's the fucking man. He was New York's most eligible bachelor for a long time. Like, they would write about him in the newspaper and stuff. It's pretty funny. I love Danilo Gallinari, and I think this is actually a pretty good matchup for him. So Danilo against Joe Ingles, Royce O'Neal, Georges Niang. I like him in all of those matchups. I think Andre Roberson's playing again. I think he's just coming back. So if Roberson was getting a full allotment of minutes, that makes me less interested in Danilo. But in this spot at 5,600, Danilo could put up 30 real life points. So that's pretty interesting. Definitely looking at Danilo. 5,600 is pretty good price for Danilo. From the first game, when I watched the opening game, Royce O'Neal had a good game. 30 DraftKings points. So not creating a ton of value for you there, but he played a good game. So it's like, good real life player, maybe doesn't translate into DraftKings often. Georges Niang, if any more minutes open up on the Jazz, I think that Niang actually is going to play a decent role in the bubble, but he needs to have those minutes open up for him. I like Georges Niang. I kind of feel sorry for him. But again, so a lot of the upside for these players is limited because Rudy Gobert is taking so many rebounds. OKC's rotation just seems really weird. Like, am I missing something? We've gotten through 4 positions, and I only have like a handful of players that I can even think about playing from OKC. So we have Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Dennis Schroeder. I guess all 3 of those players could play on the court at the same time, theoretically. Dort, I don't know anything about Dort. Danilo. Okay, so then they have Steven Adams and Nerlens Noel, so I'm sure both of them get a decent amount of minutes. That's weird. I don't know. I guess Rudy Gobert being in this game should help. Should help Steven Adams from a minutes perspective. But again, this seems like the kind of game where you'd really want to slow it down for either of those players to have like a huge upside game. So Rudy Gobert at 7,000. that's a good price for Rudy Gobert. He went 14 and 12 in the opening match. He has the 2020 upside, so you definitely want to have exposure to that if you're playing multiple lineups. Steven Adams, I could see being an okay value. He could get to 20 and 20 as well. But he's not going to be a primary option on offense. I think if you're actually maybe he would have to get some touches on offense. The more I think about it, the more I like Danilo, because the guard matchups, it's going to be whoever's running at Dennis Schroeder, whoever's being defended by Joe Ingles. Those are really the two players you're going to want scoring in most of these spots. So Danilo is very interesting for me. Danilo's not going to get Dennis Schroeder, but he's going to get Joe Ingles a lot. New Orleans against the Clippers. So the Clippers, we have Reggie Jackson. A lot of people are going to be, a lot of DraftKings players will feel burned by him. So definitely, you have to consider playing Reggie Jackson again. Drew Holiday, Lonzo Ball. Frank Jackson played a decent amount in the first game. No, he didn't. I guess the minutes that I saw. Actually, no. The reason I remember him is because of his hair. His hair looks ridiculous now. Pat Beverly didn't get a full allotment of minutes in the first game, but his minutes will continue to increase. I don't really love this 112 to 117. So this should be the highest scoring game on the slate, and I think that it's going to attract a lot of ownership from other players. I didn't watch the Lakers play the Clippers. Just wasn't really that interested in that game, if I'm being honest. JJ Redick had a very good first game, 30 points. Again, he's somebody who needs to basically score to be impactful for DraftKings. Shamit? Nope. So Drew Holiday, JJ Redick, Etwan Moore, I saw him playing as well. So a deep rotation, but I guess a lot of them aren't getting a ton of minutes. Drew Holiday, Lonzo Ball, JJ Redick, Brandon Ingram. Okay, Josh Hart's listed as a small forward. Josh Hart got a decent number of minutes. 22 minutes. Josh Hart's a good real-life basketball player. Tough to be too excited about him for DraftKings. So Brandon Ingram, I think that this is going to be a difficult matchup for Brandon Ingram against Kawhi Leonard specifically. Like, if you're the Clippers and you want to win this game, you're going to put Kawhi on either Drew Holiday or Brandon Ingram. You're going to put Paul George on the other player, probably. And then try to control the game that way. Not sure what Zion's doing. Not sure how many minutes he's getting. Marcus Morris, good defender. Nicola Melli, he kind of didn't play very well in the first game. I'm not playing JaMychal Green. Montrezl Harrell, is he still not playing? Still not playing. Interesting. So, I mean, it looks like for the Clippers, the only players you're really going to want to get into your lineups are Reggie Jackson, Pat Beverly maybe. Who else is really even touching the ball? It looks like just Kawhi and Paul George are dominating the touches. $19 minutes for. So I saw some people were pretty upset with the Morris twins on Twitter the other day. Yeah, so Kawhi and Paul George are really the main players here. I would be a little bit afraid of a blowout because I think it really depends on what the Clippers are trying to do. I think the Clippers are definitely the better side for real life. That's not like breaking news or anything. They're one of the best teams in the NBA. But I feel like they're the team that's going to dictate how this game plays out. So I wouldn't be surprised if this game went under. Because they want to slow it down and make sure that they're not killing Kawhi Leonard or Paul George in these games that don't really mean as much. And the other thing is, I think that their chances of getting the number 1 overall seed were like significantly diminished by losing to the Lakers. So they might have even less incentive to play a lot of these guys a lot of minutes. So this is a game that you're going to need to watch out for the news to see if you can get any value on either team. I don't really love a lot of these players though. Derek Favors could be in a good spot to kind of bounce back from disappointing on opening night. So that's really the main angle I'd be looking at to use players from this game. So Philly against Indiana. Ben Simmons, you can basically play him on any slate. Alec Burks is a scorer, not really somebody I want to get into my lineups. Aaron Holiday might be starting. I read that earlier today. Malcolm Brogdon is still questionable. If Malcolm Brogdon sits, it opens up a ton of usage for the other players on the team. Victor Oladipo is supposed to play. Josh Richardson is a good real-life player. You can always play Josh Richardson when he's around 5,000 because he has the 50-point DraftKings upside. He doesn't do it often, but he has done it in the past. So Oladipo had not... If we get one of Brogdon and Oladipo, you'll probably need to consider them. What's the line in this? 111 to 105. Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, another good player. They might have to go undersized, Indiana, where they have TJ Warren at the 4. So Philly's already a pretty big team, and they don't lose anything by going big. They're just a good athletic team that's oversized. So you could see a lot of like Tobias Harris at the 4, I think, against TJ Warren, which would be interesting. Mike Scott could get some extra minutes if he's in the rotation right now. Supposedly, like Al Horford is just not a good fit with the team. He doesn't fit into a lot of the different lineups. Miles Turner should get a lot of action against Embiid, but that's a tough matchup. Like Embiid will probably just put Miles Turner in the garbage can. So, yeah, he ate him up last time. Not my favorite spot tonight for a center. Let's see what other centers are tonight. Anthony Davis, Nikola Jokic, Bam Adebayo. There are better spots. Rudy Gobert again, 7,000 I think is pretty good. All right, let's go to the last game. LeBron, Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet. You always have to consider Fred VanVleet. I'd rather have him at a lower number. Kyle Lowry, same thing. I'd rather have him at a slightly lower number. LeBron is always going to dominate the ball. Caruso didn't really have a great first game. Norm Powell puts up a decent number of points. Contavious Caldwell-Pope. Like, you can't trust a lot of the secondary options from the Lakers. In a GPP situation, if you want to have like a random player go off in the last game to like shoot your lineup up the scoreboard, then yeah, you can look at the Lakers, but I don't trust any of them. Like maybe you get a J.R. Smith going off, that'd be funny. OG Anunoby, he could be playing a lot this game. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is a player that I like a lot in real life. Not sure how he's going to fit into the rotation and everything for the Raptors. Stanley Johnson. They have a lot of players that, like, body type wise match up with the Lakers, but they're not very good. Pascal Siakam, if the Raptors win this game, I'm sure he'll have a very good game. So you probably just want to go... I think they were talking about Siakam handling the ball more in secondary, in like their other rotations when Kyle Lowry's not on the floor. Marcus Gasol, he'll probably get abused by Anthony Davis. Serge Ibaka has a better chance against him. Not a lot of interesting plays from there. So let's go by position, and I'll get my favorite play, and then we'll get out of here. So like I said, I like Kendrick Nunn because of the matchup. I like Jordan Clarkson a lot. We'll put him at shooting guard. I like Jordan Clarkson a lot against Dennis Schroeder. But everyone else is too. I think there was additional upside that he didn't really tap into in that first game. Reggie Jackson, I'm going back to Reggie Jackson probably. Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons, Malcolm Brogdon. They're both interesting. Malcolm Brogdon is like an oversized point guard, but he's still not as big as Ben Simmons. It's so funny. Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet. LeBron, you can always justify playing LeBron. Jimmy Butler. Love Jimmy Butler. In this matchup, Jimmy Butler's probably going to be like very important defensively, and then doesn't have a great matchup offensively. Like, not super excited about that. So Kendrick Nunn again. Utah against OKC. Don't really like any of the players here. I do like Donovan Mitchell and like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Dennis Schroeder. I like them, but they're not like very good value plays or very good high upside plays in my opinion. Don't really want JJ. Drew Holiday, he didn't have a very good first game, right? Yeah, 38. So he has the additional upside. If they're competitive, you would think that Drew Holiday is a big reason for that. Victor Oladipo could be very interesting tonight. Aaron Holiday is another player that I'm looking at. If Brogdon sits, if Brogdon sits, I'll probably want to play Aaron Holiday. That's a good value at 4,000. And then, not really interested in any of these players. Small forward, Michael Porter Jr. is probably one of the best value plays on the night. Small forward, Danilo is another player I think is very interesting today. I'll want exposure to that. Kawhi is always a good play. Paul George is always a good play. Brandon Ingram. I could see them not locking him down. They're gonna make his life difficult. I don't think that the Clippers are gonna let themselves lose to Brandon Ingram scoring 40 real life points. Have they played yet this season? 22 points per game, so under his average. Not a ton of value there. At the small forward spot, TJ Warren could get a lot of minutes. TJ Warren can put up 50 points, 50 DraftKings points, so maybe that's somebody to take into consideration. And then, not overly enthusiastic about the small forward spot in the last game. Jay Crowder, I think, is an okay play. Bull, I think, is actually just a really good play again. So we have a lot of value on the slate. Jokic, I'm always interested in playing Jokic. Always interested in playing Bam Adebayo. Rudy Gobert and Steven Adams are both in play. But they'll need to score a lot to justify not using some of these value options. Zion, I probably won't be playing much Zion at all until the minutes restrictions are gone and he's like fully healthy. Derek Favors, an okay bounce back candidate from last game. Zubac didn't even play a lot in their first game. Not really too interested. Did I skip power forward? I may have. Joel Embiid is always a good option. Miles Turner, if you think that they can keep it close. Serge Ibaka is a good option. Anthony Davis, there's no way he actually sits, right? Did I miss anybody? Millsap, Jay Crowder. I could see Kelly Olynyk playing a big role in this game. I just don't know if he's a part of the rotation right now. Like, I don't know if it's even. I don't know if it's possible for him to get minutes right now. That's basically it. I probably missed a few of the good value plays, but these are 5 very good value options. So I would definitely take all these players into consideration. Reggie Jackson in a good bounce back spot. I think that a lot of players will go back to him without thinking twice about it, but some people will be afraid. Jordan Clarkson had additional upside in that first game that he didn't tap into. The more minutes he gets against Dennis Schroeder, the better. This could be a huge game from Jordan Clarkson or one of the other guards from Utah. So definitely want exposure to Utah's guards. Michael Porter Jr., 3,000, and he might start. That's pretty interesting. Watch out for that news. Danilo, one of my favorite players. This is probably a biased spot, but I think that he's a good matchup into Utah either way. And then Bull is an athletic freak. So thanks for watching. That's all I got for you today, and I'll talk to you later.